Kaija Saariaho, it's a great pleasure to see you. Thank you for making time to be with us today.
It's a pleasure.
Greetings from Cleveland. You are in Helsinki, Finland.
Yes, yes.
And I know that you live in Paris full time. May I ask you, how is it that you are in Helsinki right now?
I came to Helsinki on March 13th. I was supposed to have concert the following week with new orchestra work, and I took my work with me because our daughter is living here, and I had planned to stay a little bit time with her also. So now I'm spending much more than I planned.
The piece you were going to have performed in Helsinki, was that a new piece, a premiere?
Yeah, it was an orchestra piece called Vista, and it was supposed to be premiered on March 20.
I imagine they're working with you to reschedule any. What's the feeling today in Helsinki about rescheduling things and reopening?
Oh, it's like everywhere. I think that I had other performances here. Now, some of them had been rescheduled in the end of August. Well, that we know all that might be too soon. This orchestra piece is planned now for December. That might be too soon as well. So it's very strange, I'm sure, for you, but for everybody, really not knowing what is going on. And for a composer, it's very strange.
I wanted to ask you specifically about a piece of yours called Orion. I must tell you, it was 2 years ago that the violinist Peter Herrestal came to Cleveland to perform on our series, playing your music, Graal Theater. And he told me this story that I had not heard before, that you had been in the Cleveland Museum of Art many years before, and this was an inspiration for something that you had been working on at the time. Can you tell me this? Do you mind telling me that story again of how you came to be in the Cleveland Museum of Art and what you found here?
Well, in fact, it was 2001, and the Cleveland Orchestra was playing my piece, De Crystal. And I came over to hear the orchestra and to learn to know them, because I was planning to, I had a commission to write them a new piece, which then became Orion. And but I didn't have so many ideas yet. And as you know well, the museum is very nicely next to the hall, Severance Hall, and after one rehearsal of Orion, De Crystal, I went to see the museum, and in the medieval room, in the middle of the room, there was this medieval painting, which was hung very strangely because it was in the middle of the room. So I went to see the painting, wondering already why it was there. And I saw this bridal couple. It's a painting from 1500, German painting. And then I walked to the other side to understand why it was in the middle of the room. And in fact, there was, I suppose, the same couple, but in cadavers, rotten bodies. And I wrote and I read the text saying that this was a custom that if a young couple was to marry, there could have been this other painting, which was then called Memento Mori, Remember You Will Die, so that as an advice to use well your life, because it's not eternal and we all die. it was somehow very shocking, and this idea stayed in my mind, and it found its way to the piece in strangely concrete way, because I had already in my mind some music with which I wanted to start the piece, and then realized a little bit later that I want to have 3 movements in this piece, and I decided that the first movement would be a twofold structure called Memento Mori. And since I had this calm music in my mind already for the beginning of the piece, I made a connection with this young bridal couple, and then wanted to find a way how to move from that music into something using the same musical material, but how to move into something very, very dramatic. And then finally I was just thinking that how to express musically just that little moment when I took those steps from in the front of the painting to the back of the painting, and that became the quite sudden transition that took us to the very much more dramatic and dark interpretation of the same material.
It's so interesting to me. Thank you for sharing that recollection. That it sounds as if your experience with this painting, the bridal couple, not so much that it was the colors or the style of the painting itself, but it informed the structure of your piece, as you described, transitioning from this life to that, this world to that world, and the way you moved around the object. Is that a common inspiration for you to find this in artwork, visual artwork?
Yeah, in fact it is. I think that as in this case, often also in other cases, I do have some musical material in my mind already. And then this connection happens. And it's true, I mean, my music is not describing the bridal couple. And the second half, it's not describing the corpses. But somehow this very contrasting pair gave me musical ideas how to develop the material from one to another, and that is something that has happened to me, not this way but another way, concerning the structure. This is of course completely special, but it was very special to have this old painting hang in the middle of this hall. So, and it sounds very like one-to-one and a simple thing to have happened, but finally it was quite a long process in my mind, so that this what I lived there that day, that it in fact became music.
I remember when I first asked you in email this story that Peter had told to me. Is this true? Did this happen this way? And you had replied something like, I'm not sure. It might have been a dream. I don't really remember exactly. Sometimes it's more of an impression than an actuality.
Yeah, it could have been a dream. That also happens to me, and sometimes it's has been even a little bit embarrassing that I I have remembered something surely having happened, and I have been dreaming about it. But this could have been like dream. It sounds a little bit like a dream.